Before I start the video, by the way, some of you might be wondering, where's that stupid intro where I'm flying around in space without a helmet on about to explode? Yeah, apparently the people who made that song thought it would be really funny if they copyright striked all the videos with it. So, yeah, we're gonna have to throw that one in the trash for a bit. Back to the topic of this video, though. Now, I'm gonna be honest, at first, I didn't even think I'd be making a video about these two games. More specifically, Hades. While I liked playing Spelunky 2, I didn't really feel like making a video on it. But hey, since it is also a smallish indie game and is also a roguelike like Hades, I thought, why not include it? But back to Hades, yeah, like I said, I had no intention of making a video on this game. That is until I saw the Game Awards this year. Now, for those of you who've been living under a rock and don't know what the Game Awards are, it's basically a show where this dude named Geoff Keighley walks onto the stage and says, "Gaming." And by the end, you gotta make sure to have that one person who says, "Hey kids, did you know vaping is cringe? Anyways, check out my epic dance moves that definitely aren't dated and don't want to make you smoke 12 packs of broken glass immediately after seeing this." Oh yeah, and it usually lasts like 4 hours. Now, even though that might sound kind of horrible to watch, and it is, let's be honest here, most of us fellow gamers still want to know who wins despite how stupid and rigged it all seems. That, and also all the memes that follow it immediately after it ends, like this gem that happened the year Nier Automata won Best Soundtrack.
Fuck the Oscars, you know? Fuck the Oscars! Fuck you!
Oh god, this is gonna end up in a cringe compilation, isn't it? But yeah, during the Game Awards, when the best action game was coming up, I really thought Doom Eternal would win. But surprisingly, this little game called Hades ended up winning. Which I'm not gonna lie, as a certified die-hard Doom Eternal fan, might have made me a little more than salty. Like shit, Doom got completely robbed at the Game Awards. It didn't even win Best Soundtrack either. But anyways, after the awards ended, I was surprised to see so many people were putting this little indie game as one of their favorite games of the year. Even above some of the more mainstream games like, again, Doom Eternal, the Final Fantasy VII remake, and Ghost of Tsushima. So around New Year's, after seeing around approximately 1,000 tweets an hour about how amazing Hades is, I finally decided to bite the bullet and buy it on the Switch. And I remember thinking after I bought it, there's no way Hades can be this good, right? I mean, it looks cool and all, but Game of the Year material though? I don't know about that. And then I actually played it. Holy shit, do I now realize how wrong I was. As a previous non-believer, let me tell you that this game is in fact that good, and now I'm gonna tell you why. Now, like always when I'm reviewing games, I usually talk about the story for a good amount of time, but with both of these games today, that's actually gonna take like 10 seconds to do. So if you haven't guessed by now, Hades is clearly, as the name implies it, set in the world of Greek mythology. You play as a dude named Zagreus, who's the son of Mr. Hades, the god of death himself, trying to escape from the four realms of the underworld. The exact reasons of why he's trying to escape, you know, besides it literally being hell, are revealed the longer you play the game for. Really, what makes Hades' story good are the character interactions with the gods living in each of the different realms. And this is coming from someone who knows almost nothing about Greek gods. Seriously, the only shit I know about Greek mythology is from God of War. So every time a god would show up, I'd be like, oh yeah, I killed you. Took like 3 games, but I eventually killed you. Oh yeah, and you betrayed me. That was pretty cool. By the way, totally unrelated, but if anybody happens to have any connections to Aphrodite and or a possible way I could break into Olympus, just hook me up. But again, Hades actually does a pretty good job at portraying their personalities, and you can almost immediately tell how they're going to act based off of what they're the god of. Not only does it utilize the characters from Greek mythology well, but because it's Greek mythology, every death or accomplishment you make actually makes sense in its world. Since Zagreus is a demigod and can't actually die, because of that, certain characters around you actually react to your accomplishments, which is pretty cool. But yeah, like I said, while the story on the surface might seem somewhat basic, it's the character interactions that flesh it out. And I'm sure for all you nerds out there who actually read these stupid things called books, I'm sure it's even more entertaining actually knowing some of the Greek mythology that's referenced in this game. Hell, even though I don't know shit about Greek mythology, Hades did make me actually want to know more about these characters. Especially Aphrodite, if you know what I'm saying. But now let's talk about the other thing that makes Hades so good, and even makes me understand why people would call it their game of the year, the gameplay. Now, one of the first things that I noticed about Hades that makes it so special is how it handles being a roguelike, and even bends the rules a little bit in some pretty interesting ways. Now, for those of you who've been living in Tartarus, the simple definition of a roguelike from my point of view is a game where practically everything in it is randomized, down to the level layout, the weapons, the items, you get the idea. Oh yeah, and you also die like 1,000 times before you actually beat the game. Don't want to forget that part. But yeah, the appeal of these games usually boils down to being super weak in the beginning, but then due to the randomness of the items, having the chance to basically become Doom Guy and be absolutely unstoppable the further you get in. But what makes Hades so great is how it takes the established rules of a roguelike and bends them by doing one simple thing, and that's by giving you a little thing called permanent upgrades. Now, while this may sound simple, for a roguelike, this is a pretty big deal, since as far as I know, I don't think any other roguelike that I've ever played actually does this. Not only can you upgrade Zagreus' abilities himself by using these things called darkness crystals, but you can also upgrade your weapons and even the actual chambers themselves to help you out. So even though you might be getting absolutely destroyed in some of the beginning worlds, you're still always improving and getting stronger the more times you're sent back, as long as you get some of these good items, which is pretty groundbreaking for a game like this. Like, Hades is one of those games where you die and it's like, alright, maybe one more run couldn't hurt. I need to win this shit right now. Seriously, both of the games I'm talking about are like crack, okay? Once you play one round of this shit, you're not gonna want to stop. Again, I'm not saying this from experience. I'm just saying, if I happened to borrow some crack from some dude off the street, hypothetically, this is what it would be like. Hell, I've seen so many people who aren't even fans of roguelikes actually enjoy playing Hades because of this, which is pretty cool. Now, like I said, in terms of general layout for the gameplay, you go through 4 different worlds fighting tons of enemies called shades before getting to a boss at the end. Along the way, you're given these things called boons from random gods of Olympus who want to help you escape the underworld. You can also find gifts, crystals, and other useful items that will help you in the long term. The weapons in this game are amazing, by the way. All of them are incredibly unique, and seriously, not a single one of them is bad. Well, okay, maybe at the beginning when they have no upgrades. Like, I'm not gonna lie, that gun definitely did feel like I was shooting Nerf bullets at first. But weirdly enough, it actually was the weapon I got my first win with, so you know. Oh yeah, and you can also fish now, which is pretty cool. Even after you beat the game for the first time, there's still tons of content left for you to do. So much, in fact, that you're probably gonna want to beat the game again just to know more about the story. Another really cool thing Hades does is have characters actually react to what you do. Like, you can even talk to some of the characters you fight, and some bosses even switch up their attack patterns the more times you kill them. Not to mention the art style of this game looks absolutely gorgeous, by the way, and the music excellently complements the action-packed gameplay. Like, seriously, this track right here, this should be going stupid. Overall, I'd say Hades definitely lives up to all the hype. It brilliantly utilizes its setting in Greek mythology, has an amazing story with great characters, fun, addictive gameplay, and honestly, this is one of the rare games I've reviewed that I can't name a single criticism for. And for that, I'm gonna have to give this one an A+ or a 10 out of 10. Like I said, it really is, in fact, that good. And if you have a Switch or a decent PC, you should definitely give it a try. However, like I said for this video, I'm gonna be covering 2 games here. So why don't we move on to our next game, Spelunky 2, and start off with the story. Now remember when I said Hades' story would be short? Yeah, about that. I think Spelunky 2's story summary might be one of the shortest summaries on my channel. Essentially, Spelunky 2 starts off many years after the first game ended, with Mr. Guy Spelunky himself having a daughter named Anna. However, Guy starts having visions of the boss from the first game, Olmec, just being on the moon and kinda just sitting there, which causes him and his wife to just literally abandon their daughter in search of what's happening on the moon. Of course, just like my dad in real life, he never comes back. So now Anna and some of her friends go up to the moon in order to save her parents. Now when Spelunky 2 was first announced, I was insanely hyped for it since Spelunky 1 was so good. Hell, me and my friends still constantly play its deathmatch mode all the time. And it definitely deserves credit for being one of the first few OG roguelikes of its time. Now in terms of gameplay, remember how I said what makes Hades special is how it gives you permanent upgrades? Yeah, I fucking wish Spelunky 2 would do something like that. No. You would think the game about escaping the underworld and fighting the literal god of death himself would be harder than a game with a girl and her dog jumping around on the moon, but no. Do not let this little gremlin on the cover fool you. Behind this little gremlin's eyes lies death and destruction. Unlike Hades, this game is what I'd call a classic roguelike from beginning to end. Once you die, that's it. No matter what you've done, no matter how much health you add, once you die, it's game over and you get absolutely nothing in return. And because of this, I'd honestly, unironically say that Spelunky 2 is the more difficult game than Hades. In terms of gameplay, it's almost exactly like Spelunky 1, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Unlike Hades, Spelunky 2 is much more platforming focused rather than, you know, beating the shit out of your enemies. There are about 6 main worlds you traverse through, along with 3 other secret worlds, one of which is required to get the true ending of the game. In these worlds, each level is randomly generated, along with the items which you can get by finding them in boxes, helping out NPCs, or by buying them from a shopkeeper. Or you could just rob the shopkeepers and steal everything. But let me tell you from experience that shit almost never works out, okay? Don't do it. Within each level, you have to carefully platform your way around traps and enemies until you make it to the exit. Remember those, gamer moments I was talking about in my Mortal Kombat video? Yeah, this game is full of those. Seriously, one little mistake like setting off a random trap or throwing a tiny little pebble somewhere can just spiral into this snowball effect of pure death, and the next thing you know, you're fucking dead within seconds. This game will teach you the definition of pain. You are going to be crying after playing 5 seconds of it. This shit is liquid CBT. And for those of you who don't know what CBT stands for, trust me, you don't want to know. However, because of how quickly you can die, you end up learning how to play it and get better almost every run. And when you finally make it to the next world, it really does feel like you earned it. One of the things I like the most about Spelunky 2 and the original are its secrets. Like I said, this game is somewhat old school, but that combined with its randomness makes it a lot of fun when you actually find out what certain items do, and it was pretty cool to actually know what I was doing the further I got into the game. As for the art style, it looks pretty good. The one criticism I'd have to give it would probably be for the backgrounds. Like, I will say Spelunky 1's world looks much grittier than Spelunky 2's, but in contrast, Spelunky 2's character art looks 10 times better than 1's. Not to mention the other modes like deathmatch are turning as well, which are always insanely chaotic and fun to play with friends. Along with that, you can also play the entire game online, which is pretty cool despite not being able to get any achievements for it. As for the music, that's also mostly good. All of it's pretty memorable and insanely catchy. Either that or 1's music is permanently stamped into my brain because of how many times I died and got sent back. However, I do prefer 1's music a little more than 2's, mainly because of how nostalgic it is in a way. Seriously, my only main criticism besides what I just mentioned would probably be for the lack of new weapons. Like, it was kinda disappointing when I realized almost all of them are the exact same from the first game. But overall, I'd say Spelunky 2 is a pretty great game and is the perfect sequel to Spelunky 1. If you're looking for a fun and challenging platformer that puts your skills to the test and is also a roguelike, then this game is for you. And for those reasons, I'd probably give it an A- or an 8 out of 10. As much as I like Spelunky 2, I do think Hades is the better roguelike between the two. But hey, like I said, both of them are still great. And as I stated in the title of this video, are my top 2 indie games of 2020 and probably the best roguelike that year too. Apparently both Spelunky 1 and 2 are coming to the Switch this year as well, which is absolutely perfect for the type of games that they are. But anyways, yeah. Thanks for watching, my fellow gaming squadron, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Goodbye.